On every battlefield, two wars are fought. One is visible: rifles firing, artillery falling, soldiers advancing or retreating. The other is invisible and far more decisive. It unfolds inside the human mind. Why do some armies stand firm under impossible pressure while others collapse in moments? Why does one unit hold a trench against overwhelming odds while another breaks before the first shot is fired? History shows that weapons alone do not decide wars. Numbers do not guarantee victory. Even training has limits. What matters most is belief. Belief in leaders, in comrades, in survival itself. When that belief cracks, armies do not retreat, they disintegrate. This is the hidden story of war. Not tactics on paper, but fear, discipline, cohesion, exhaustion, and morale. The forces that determine whether soldiers fight, flee, or endure. This is battlefield psychology, and it explains why wars are won long before the battle begins. Contrary to popular myth, soldiers rarely fight for abstract ideas like strategy or geopolitics. On the battlefield, motivation becomes personal and immediate. Most fight for the person beside them. Studies across centuries, from Roman legions to modern armies, show the same pattern. Soldiers endure danger not because they crave heroism, but because they fear letting their comrades down. Loyalty replaces ideology. Survival becomes collective. Early armies understood this instinctively. Units were built around local communities, tribes, or long-standing regiments. Familiarity created trust, and trust created resilience. When fear surged, cohesion held men in place. Leadership also mattered, sometimes more than weapons. A commander who shared risk inspired endurance. One who hid behind safety bred resentment and collapse. Soldiers watch leaders constantly. Confidence spreads quickly. So does doubt. Training reinforced this psychology. Repetition under stress turned chaos into routine. Drills conditioned soldiers to act before fear could paralyze them. But motivation was fragile. Hunger, exhaustion, and prolonged exposure to danger slowly eroded discipline. When soldiers felt abandoned, misled, or sacrificed needlessly, belief fractured. Armies don't fight because they want to. They fight because in the moment, fighting feels safer than breaking. Fear is the most powerful force on the battlefield. Not fear of death, but fear of uncertainty. Explosions you cannot see, bullets you never hear, an enemy you cannot locate. This kind of fear overwhelms logic. It exhausts the nervous system and erodes decision-making. Modern warfare intensified this effect. Artillery barrages in World War I shattered not only trenches, but minds. Soldiers endured days of bombardment without the ability to respond. Helplessness became psychological torture. Armies learned quickly that fear spreads faster than fire. Panic in one unit infects another. A single retreat can unravel an entire front. To counter this, militaries developed rituals and structure. Routines created a sense of control. Clear orders reduced hesitation. Predictability became a psychological shield. But fear never disappears. Even elite troops experience it. The difference is how it's managed. When fear becomes shared, soldiers endure together. When fear becomes isolating, men break alone. This is why surprise, deception, and psychological warfare are so effective. Convince the enemy they are surrounded, outmatched, or abandoned, and the battle may be won without a fight. Wars are not decided by who is fearless. They are decided by who controls fear. Every army has a limit. The breaking point is not marked by casualties alone, but by perception. When soldiers believe the situation is hopeless, discipline collapses rapidly. History offers countless examples. At Stalingrad, German units didn't surrender because they ran out of ammunition. They surrendered when hope vanished. In contrast, defenders in seemingly impossible positions have fought on when belief remained intact. Psychologists call this combat effectiveness. Once lost, it rarely returns. Signals of collapse appear early: hesitation, disobedience, silence where communication once existed. Officers stop issuing orders. Soldiers stop expecting them. When retreat begins without coordination, fear replaces command. Units fragment. Individuals prioritize escape over cohesion. An army ceases to function as an army. This is why commanders fear disorder more than defeat. An organized retreat preserves morale. A chaotic one destroys it. Modern doctrine focuses heavily on preventing psychological collapse, rotating troops, managing fatigue, maintaining supply lines, and preserving communication. Because once an army breaks, weapons are irrelevant. The battle has already been lost inside the mind. Elite units are not fearless. They are conditioned. Their strength lies in mental resilience. Selection processes identify those who function under stress. Training pushes soldiers beyond exhaustion to teach control when instincts scream to stop. Small unit cohesion is paramount. Trust within elite teams is absolute. Every member depends on the others for survival. This creates psychological armor stronger than any equipment. Adaptability also matters. Units trained to improvise suffer less shock when plans fail. Rigidity leads to panic. Flexibility sustains momentum. Elite forces emphasize purpose. Missions are clear. Objectives are understood. Ambiguity breeds doubt. But even elite soldiers are human. Prolonged exposure to combat erodes resilience. Modern militaries now recognize psychological injury as inevitable, not shameful. Survival in war is not about aggression. It is about endurance. Those who understand this last longer than those who don't. Today's battlefield extends far beyond physical terrain. Information overload, constant surveillance, and digital warfare introduce new psychological pressures. Soldiers are watched, recorded, and analyzed in real time. Mistakes echo globally. Drones create permanent exposure. There is no safe rear. The front line is everywhere. At the same time, modern armies invest heavily in mental health, morale, and cognitive readiness. Psychological resilience is now a strategic asset. Propaganda and information warfare target populations and soldiers alike. undermine belief at home, and frontline morale weakens. The battlefield mind is no longer isolated. It is connected to media, politics, and public perception. War remains a test of endurance, but today that test begins long before the first shot is fired. Weapons evolve. Tactics change. Technology advances, but the human mind remains the battlefield's constant. Armies win not by eliminating fear, but by managing it. They survive not by ignoring exhaustion, but by enduring it together. And they collapse not when they lose strength, but when they lose belief. Every war is ultimately decided twice, once in strategy rooms and supply depots, and once inside the minds of those sent to fight. Understanding battlefield psychology does not make war glorious, it makes it honest. Because behind every advance, every retreat, every victory and defeat, there is a human mind struggling to hold itself together under unimaginable pressure. And that struggle decides everything.